Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is episode 10 of the microvlog series, and I thought today I would take this opportunity to kind of expand upon something that I mentioned at the end of episode 9, which was the CMYK ink limit part of producing a comic book. Now, that's definitely on the more technical side of publishing, and it's an incredibly important part because that is how you ensure your pages print like they're supposed to. Everything I'm about to go over only applies to printing your book. If you are strictly producing your story for digital, this does not apply to you at all. You can create your story however you want. You can color using whatever colors you would like. But if you plan on printing it at any point in time, if you would ever like to have your book in print and hold it in your hand, these are some steps to keep in mind as you prep your files. Real quick, I draw in Procreate. I export the page to Photoshop, which I have pulled up here on screen. And you see I export as a PSD so I can have all of my layers. And then when I get into Photoshop, I will press Control, Alt, Shift, E, and that takes a snapshot of the page. So I have all of the line art on one layer, and then I will go up to Filter, Sharpen, Unsharp Mask, and have everything, the amount set to 500, radius to 1, and threshold to 255. Now, why am I doing this? Because if you don't, this is my way of doing things. If you look at the artwork before doing this, you see all these little jaggies. Do not want that. I do not like that. I think it makes your artwork look soft in the printed page. And maybe it's just me making things up. I don't know, but I've been doing it this way for 26 years, so I'm just used to it. But so these little soft edges here will make a step near the end in the pre-press process a pain. So we're going to go ahead and make this easy. So we go to Filter, Sharpen, Unsharp Mask. We have these settings, 500, 1, 255. And now you see the little jaggies are still there, but the detail. And when we run Threshold, now we no longer have that soft edge. This is a harsh edge that we like. Everything on the page is black or it's white. And that is what we want. And now we have a page that is just black, just white. And if we set the layer to multiply now and fill color below it, you can see we're ready for coloring. But we're not going to do rendering in this video because that takes way too long. So now you have your page ready for coloring. The important part that I want to talk about finally in this video is your CMYK ink limit, which if you will look here on your color picker, right here is CMYK. That's cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Those are the 4 colors professional printing places will use to print your book with. And these numbers right here represent the amount of ink of each color that will be used to produce the color needed. And these numbers, when you add them up, you want them to be below. I keep my numbers below 220. I print on 80-pound gloss paper. So 220, I could probably do 230, 240, but I'm staying at 220 just to be safe and no issues. Because if you get too high, the amount of ink that will be used to create your colors will be too much for the paper. If you have ever printed a photo on a piece of regular copy paper, you know how wet it feels and it gets all wrinkly. It's because there's too much ink on the paper. The paper's not designed for that much ink. Same thing happens here. If you hit over 220, over 230, we'll say, your paper will not be able to hold that much ink. So you want to keep your printer happy and your book looking good. So we want to stay below 220. Now, how do you ensure that happens? Well, this is why I use Photoshop. This info box right here, window and info, right here. If you have the color picker selected, you can roll over any color you have used and it will tell you not just the CMYK amounts of the color, but also the total so far. So like this color is only 110%. Remember, my limit's 220. This darker color is 134. I have plenty of room to go if I want to keep pushing it. And this way I can ensure that my colors are going to reproduce correctly when printed. And a good rule of thumb is when you are coloring, you want to avoid using this lower third of the color picker. Because once you get down here, your K value is going to get really high. And as that K value increases, the black ink used in creating that color will override the other colors. In a previous episode, I did the ink wash. And remember, I had a huge thing of water in there, and one little dollop of ink completely overrode that water. That's what happens with the printing. Too much of the black ink mixed in will make your colors muddy. So if you want to avoid that issue, ignore this lower third of the color picker. And again, this is only for print. If your book is digital, you can go crazy. You can use everything on here. All of these colors that are way outside of the printing range, they're fair game for digital only. But printing, none of these up here will work. So if you pay attention to the info box here and keep your colors below 220, and if you have your proof colors and gamut warning set, your book should print exactly as it is on screen. When I'm coloring, I am in RGB mode always. Some people will only color in CMYK. I will stay in RGB, but I will have proof colors and gamut warning selected. And as you can see here with Wolverine, this gray bit means it's outside the printing range. Anything that is gray, which is all of this background color here, is outside the printing range, and it will not show up like this. That's another little check you can use to see if your pages are going to print correctly. So coloring your book is obviously an incredibly important part of the entire process, but the technical side of it is one of the least talked about parts. I don't know if it's just because it's super confusing or if it's something that no one really wants to share their info about, but so that is just a quick little overview of tips to keep in mind when working on your comic book. So if you plan on printing, when coloring, keep your ink CMYK ink limits below 220. If you're going digital only, ignore all of this. Alright, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button. If you really like the video, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell notification. And I will see you in the next one. Bye!